Love was never meant to feel like survival training. Yet too often it does. You bend. You shrink. You learn how to tiptoe around silence. Not because that's who you are, but because you've been taught that this is what it takes to love a dismissive avoidant. But here's the truth. This is not love. This is endurance. And endurance will break you long before it ever changes them. The wrong lessons were being taught. Go online today. Search for advice about dismissive avoidance. What do you see? An endless stream of guidance. But notice where that guidance points. Not at the avoidants themselves, but at the people who love them. The message is subtle, but clear. Here's how you should behave if you want to keep them. Be patient. Don't pressure them. Learn to adapt. Learn to give space. Sounds harmless, right? But sit with it. The advice begins to shift. It begins to sound less like help and more like survival training. Because suddenly, you, the partner, are carrying all the responsibility. You are told to bend, to wait, to lower your needs, to silence your longing. Also, the avoidant doesn't feel uncomfortable. And slowly, you begin to learn a devastating lesson. That your needs are negotiable. That intimacy is too much. That wanting closeness makes you the problem. But let me ask you, is that love? Or is that erasure? Because what healthy love requires is mutual effort, not one person tiptoeing, while the other hides behind walls. Yet this is the curriculum being taught everywhere. Videos, books, courses. And the result? The partner starts believing they must erase themselves to keep the relationship alive. They cut away their own hunger for connection. They silence their own voice. They shrink their own presence. Until one day, they barely recognize themselves. They stand in the mirror and whisper, "Maybe I am too much. Maybe if I just give them more space. Maybe then they'll love me the way I need." But do you see how twisted this is? The one who already gives the most is told they are asking for too much, and the one who resists intimacy is excused from accountability. It's like telling the robbed to hide their money better, instead of asking the thief to stop stealing. And isn't that backwards? Because the solution has never been silence. The solution has never been shrinking. The solution has never been patience stretched past breaking. The solution is accountability. And accountability belongs to the avoidant. Not as blame, not as punishment, but as truth. Because healing cannot happen until the one building the walls takes responsibility for the bricks. The cost of carrying someone else's healing. You love them. And because you love them, you carry more than your share. You carry the silence. You carry the distance. You carry the heavy weight of waiting. Waiting for them to finally meet you where you've already been standing. But here's the tragedy. When you carry what isn't yours, it doesn't make the load lighter. It makes you smaller. At first, it seems noble. You tell yourself, this is love. This is sacrifice. This is what commitment looks like. You remind yourself of every video, every article, every voice online that told you. If you just give them space, if you just don't push too hard, if you just learn to be patient, they'll eventually come around. And so you wait, and you bend, and you make yourself quieter. But love, real love, was never supposed to feel like disappearing. Day by day, you begin to notice the cost. You crave closeness, but instead, you rehearse distance. You long for warmth, but instead, you practice numbness. You ache for presence, but instead, you master waiting. And without realizing it, you start to train yourself to suppress your own humanity. Because the human heart was made for connection. It was made to be seen. It was made to be held. But when you love a dismissive avoidant who refuses to heal, you are taught that your deepest design is a burden. And so you carry, and carry, and carry, until the carrying becomes identity. Think about it. What happens when your entire role in love is endurance? You lose your voice. You lose your center. You lose the simple joy of being loved in return. Because the relationship stops being a partnership and becomes a performance where you are the caretaker, the stabilizer, the healer, and they are the untouched one, the distant one, the one who never risks the work of growth. And as long as you carry their healing for them, they never have to. But here's the darker truth. Carrying someone else's healing doesn't just keep them unaccountable. It breaks you. It teaches you that your worth is in how much you can endure. It whispers that love is something you earn by disappearing. It convinces you that intimacy is not about being seen, but about being silent. And so, piece by piece, you begin to vanish. You notice it in small ways first. You stop bringing up what bothers you because you don't want to trigger their withdrawal. You stop asking for reassurance because you're tired of being told you're too needy. You stop initiating conversations about the future because you've learned that hope only pushes them further away. And so your needs go underground. Your voice gets quieter. Your longing becomes a secret. Until one day, you realize the only person you've been speaking to is yourself. And here's where it cuts deep. You thought you were carrying the relationship. You thought you were protecting love. You thought you were doing the right thing. But in reality, you were erasing the very parts of yourself that make love possible. Because intimacy cannot survive without vulnerability. Connection cannot survive without needs being expressed. Love cannot survive when one person disappears. And that's exactly what happens when you carry someone else's healing. It teaches you to question your worth, to believe you are only lovable when silent, to confuse endurance with devotion. And all the while, the avoidant continues untouched. They never have to face their wounds. They never have to risk intimacy. They never have to learn what love really costs. Because you've been paying the bill with your silence, with your patience, with your very self. This is the hidden cost. It's not just loneliness. It's not just waiting. It's self-erasure. And the cruelest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening until years have passed. They wake up one day and ask, "Where did I go? When did I stop being myself? When did love become a performance of silence instead of a dance of connection?" The truth is simple. When you carry someone else's healing, you don't save the relationship. You bury yourself inside it. You become both lover and caretaker, both partner and therapist, both giver and ghost. And that's not love. That's survival. And survival is not sustainable because the human heart cannot live indefinitely in starvation. It cannot thrive in absence. It cannot keep pouring without ever being filled. So the cost of carrying someone else's healing is not just exhaustion. It is soul-deep emptiness, the kind that no amount of patience can fix, the kind that no amount of endurance can restore, the kind that whispers, late at night, "This isn't love, this is loss, and the person I am losing is myself." The illusion of progress. You tell yourself it's getting better, that maybe, finally, things are changing. There are fewer arguments, less tension, more quiet. At first, it feels like progress. You think, we've reached a calm place. We've finally found balance. But look closer, because what feels like calm might actually be silence. And silence is not the same as healing. Silence is not the same as closeness. Silence is not the same as intimacy. Here's the trap. When you've been living on edge, even scraps of stability feel like safety. When you've been starved for affection, even crumbs of warmth feel like love. And when you've been trained to equate patience with progress, Even distance can be mistaken for peace. But peace without intimacy is just emptiness. It's a waiting room disguised as a home. Think about what progress really means. Progress is movement forward, growth, deepening, expansion. It's not just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of connection. But when you're with someone who refuses to face their avoidance, the absence of conflict is often mistaken for success. And so the illusion begins. You don't argue because you don't bring up your needs. You don't fight because you've trained yourself to stay quiet. You don't push because you've learned that pushing only leads to withdrawal. So yes, it looks calmer. It looks steadier. It looks like progress. But it's not. It's suppression. It's self-silencing. It's making peace with distance instead of demanding intimacy. Let's be honest. Progress is not when you stop asking for what you need. Progress is when you are finally able to voice it and be met. Progress is not when you walk on eggshells without breaking them. Progress is when you realize you don't have to walk on eggshells at all. Progress is not when the relationship stops exploding. It's when it starts expanding, but with a dismissive, avoidant, unwilling to do the work. That kind of progress rarely comes. Instead, what you're left with is illusion. The illusion that things are better. The illusion that love is stable. The illusion that waiting is working. But illusions can only last so long. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. Avoidance doesn't vanish with time. Walls don't crumble because you waited patiently. Distance doesn't shrink because you tiptoed gently. Healing doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. And if the avoidant never steps into their own healing, the relationship remains frozen, not destroyed, not growing, just frozen. And frozen relationships are the most deceptive, because at least in chaos, you know something is wrong. But in silence, in stillness, in the illusion of calm, it's easy to believe you've found peace, until the loneliness creeps in, until the hunger gnaws louder, until the absence becomes unbearable, and you realize what you've been calling progress was only avoidance in disguise. Let me ask you this. Is it progress if you no longer cry about your needs? Or is it simply that you've stopped voicing them? Is it progress if you feel less tension? Or is it simply that you've numbed yourself? Is it progress if they haven't left? Or is it simply that you've learned how to live with their distance? Because survival and progress are not the same thing. And yet, so many people convince themselves it is. Because the illusion feels safer than the truth. The truth would mean admitting that nothing is changing. The truth would mean confronting the possibility that it never will. The truth would mean acknowledging that you are not in a love story, but in a holding pattern. And holding patterns feel endless. Here's what nobody tells you. The greatest danger in loving a dismissive avoidant isn't the explosions. It isn't the arguments. It isn't even the silence. Tease the way silence tricks you into staying. Because the calm makes you believe things are finally stable. But stability without intimacy is not love. It's limbo. And limbo is where souls go to sleep. You deserve more than illusion. You deserve more than waiting. You deserve more than calling starvation progress. Progress is not about how well you adapt to someone else's absence. Progress is about learning that your longing is not weakness, that your voice is not too much, that your needs are not negotiable. Progress is not the calm of silence. It's the courage of presence. And presence will never be born from avoidance. Because love is not an illusion. It is not an endurance test. It is not a trick of silence. Love is movement. Love is growth. Love is two people willing to risk closeness. Again and again and again. And if one refuses, then the illusion will always collapse. leaving you face to face with the truth you've been avoiding. That silence was never progress. It was only the sound of your own heart, beating louder in the emptiness, where responsibility really belongs. You've been told it's your job to be patient, your job to wait, your job to adapt. But let's pause here. Let's turn the mirror around. Where does responsibility actually belong? Because healing, true healing, is never borrowed. It cannot be outsourced. It cannot be carried by someone else. And yet, when you love a dismissive avoidant, you are trained to believe that their healing is yours to manage. Think about it. Every time they pull away, you chase less. Every time they shut down, you quiet yourself. Every time they withhold, you learn to hunger in silence. But does this teach them accountability? Or does it teach them escape? Because if there are never consequences, if there is never reflection, if there is never the mirror of responsibility, then avoidance wins and love loses. Responsibility belongs to the avoidant, not because they are broken, not because they are weak, not because they are villains in the story of intimacy. Responsibility belongs to them because their wounds are theirs, because their walls are theirs, because their healing is theirs, and only they can step into that work. But here's the challenge. Avoidants are masters of deflection. They'll say, "You're too emotional. You're too needy. You expect too much." And if you're not careful, you start to believe it. You start to believe the story that you are the problem, that your longing is a flaw, that your need for closeness is unreasonable. But let's set the record straight. Wanting intimacy does not make you weak. Craving connection does not make you clingy. Longing for presence does not make you too much. It makes you human. So let's shift the spotlight. Instead of asking, "How can I carry them more gently?" the real question is, when will they choose to carry themselves? Because responsibility is not punishment. Responsibility is power. When the avoidant takes responsibility, they reclaim the power to change. They reclaim the ability to heal. They reclaim the possibility of real intimacy. But when responsibility is dodged, the cycle repeats over and over and over again. Picture it like this. A person builds a wall, brick by brick, each brick a memory, a wound, a fear, a survival instinct. And then they invite you in, but only to the outer courtyard, never through the gate. And when you knock, when you ask, when you long, they say, "Stop pushing, stop pressuring, stop asking for too much." And so you stop. You wait at the gate. You convince yourself this is what love looks like. But the truth? The gate will never open until the one who built the wall chooses to remove the bricks. That work is theirs, not yours. But here's the heartbreak. So many partners stay at the gate, stay waiting, stay starving, believing, if I'm just patient enough, if I just love them enough, if I just hold out long enough, one day they'll let me in. But love does not grow at gates. Love grows when two people meet, fully, freely, fearlessly. And if one person refuses, then love cannot breathe. Responsibility means this. The avoidant must face themselves, their fears, their wounds, their silence. And responsibility means this. You must face the truth that you cannot do their healing for them. You cannot climb inside their childhood. You cannot rewrite their memories. You cannot dissolve their fears. You cannot be both their partner and their therapist. You cannot bleed yourself dry to water a garden they refuse to tend. And I know, it hurts to accept this, because love makes you want to carry them. Love makes you want to rescue them. Love makes you want to give everything, so they never have to suffer. But what if I told you that the very act of carrying them keeps them from learning to walk, that by taking responsibility for their healing, you are shielding them from the very growth that could save them? Love is not rescue. Love is not silence. Love is not self-erasure. Love is partnership. And partnership means accountability. So where does responsibility belong? With the avoidant. To step into therapy, to name their fears, to face their wounds, to risk vulnerability. And where does responsibility belong for you? To remember you are not too much, to honor your needs, to stop shrinking for someone else's comfort, to choose truth over illusion. Because love cannot survive on one person's endurance. It must be built on two people's responsibility. Here's the shift. You are not responsible for teaching someone how to love you. They are responsible for learning. You are not responsible for holding the relationship together with silence. They are responsible for showing up. You are not responsible for carrying their avoidance. They are responsible for putting it down. And until they choose to carry themselves, you will always be carrying both of you. But that's not partnership. That's parenting. That's caretaking. That's exhaustion dressed up as devotion. And that will never sustain love. So let this be clear. Healing belongs to them, not to you. Accountability belongs to them, not to you. And love, real love, it belongs to both. But only if both are willing to show up. The reclaiming. You've waited long enough. You've carried long enough. You've starved long enough. And somewhere inside you, there's a voice that has been whispering beneath all the noise. It says, this cannot be all there is. This cannot be what love was meant to feel like. This cannot be my forever. That voice is right. Because love was never meant to demand your disappearance. Love was never meant to cost you your voice. Love was never meant to teach you endurance instead of joy. Love was meant to see you, to hold you, to meet you, to honor you. And if that's not what you've been given, then it's not love. It's longing dressed as loyalty. So here is the reclaiming. You do not have to carry their healing. You do not have to wait in silence. You do not have to mistake survival for devotion. You are not too much. You are never too much. Your needs are not flaws. Your longing is not weakness. Your heart is not broken for wanting more. What you are is human, and humanity is not negotiable. The reclaiming begins when you stop asking, how do I make myself smaller so they can stay? And you start asking, who am I when I am no longer shrinking? Because you deserve a love that doesn't punish you for being whole. You deserve a love that doesn't ask you to starve. You deserve a love that arrives and stays. This is not about blaming the avoidant. This is not about shaming them. This is not about turning them into villains. It's about truth. And the truth is, their healing is their responsibility. Your healing is yours. And love only works when both people show up for the work. So stop waiting at the gate. Stop starving at the table. Stop calling silence progress. You have carried enough. You have endured enough. You have given enough. Now, it's time to reclaim yourself. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your worth. Reclaim the love you deserve. Because you were not born to tiptoe. You were not born to disappear. You were not born to perform silence as proof of loyalty. You were born to love. Fully, deeply, bravely. And the right person will not punish you for it. They will meet you in it. They will thank you for it. They will love you for it. So if you're listening to this now, let this be the turning point. The day you stop asking, what more can I give to keep them? And start asking, what do I need to give back to myself? Because love cannot survive your erasure, but your soul can survive reclaiming. This is your invitation to walk toward love that doesn't require silence, to choose relationships that honor your presence, to honor the truth that you are not too much. You are exactly enough, and the person who is meant for you will never make you question that. If this spoke to you, let it sink in. Let it remind you of your worth. And when you're ready, stay with me here, because together, we'll keep unlearning survival and keep remembering what real love was always meant to be.